So Whiplash is a movie about drumming.
It's more than drumming.
More than drumming.
Yeah.
I think at this point, it came out, 2014? 10 years ago.
Is it that old?
It is that old.
Am I that old? Is that the... People keep bringing up movies that I think are just like pretty recent, but then you find out they're more than
came out a couple
10,
years ago,
15 years old. I was telling you I watched the Santa Claus. And that movie, do you know what year that movie was that came out?
96?
94.
Ooh.
1994. So that's what? How old is that?
30
Almost
years.
30 years? Yeah. Jeez Louise, which was a classic movie. But back to Whiplash.
Yeah, so we should talk about Whiplash today because it's a movie about drumming, but obviously it's a lot more than drumming, as a lot of people have talked about already, I think. But I feel like this is a movie that I watch maybe every 5 years or so. Comes back around. It was just recently added back on Netflix. So if you haven't seen it or want to watch it again, you can find it pretty easily on Netflix.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense movie. What would you describe that? Is it like it's not a thriller, but it's a drama.
There's an element of suspense, I suppose, in the anxiety that it induces. Because it's very much like what's going to happen.
It's intense. It's a very intense film.
Very much so. But it's the perfect film, I think, in a lot of ways. Not like it's the best movie ever, but it's just so well executed. And this is something I want to talk to, the difference between like having the vision for something and then executing the details of that vision.
Yeah.
But it's like a filmmaker's film. You know, I feel like it's that kind of, if you were in film school or you make films, it's that kind of thing you latch onto, like, oh, this is like, it's like a low budget, independent kind of feeling, but it's also so well done that it kind of breaks outside of the classic amateur short film vibes. And it's its own movie, but it's very simple, it's very basic, but just executed so well.
Yeah, it's very cinematic for a film that is just about drumming. And a lot of it is drumming, but it's dialogue as well. So it's very much like acting. And like we were talking about, it's very like it's a filmmaker movie. To make a subject about drumming that intense is really incredible.
Did you ever see the movie Drumline?
Yes. Yeah.
With Nick Cannon?
Yeah, Nick Cannon, yeah. Which was really good.
Yeah.
I thought, it was, but like the instruments in the movie, which it's kind of interesting. I've had not the struggle, but it's very interesting when you are working on like a video project about music or a musician, because it's very awkward. It's like, well, what music do I use in the movie when I'm talking about, a drummer or a, guitarist or something?
Yeah.
So it's very...
You got to have the right... You like want to use their music, which we did recently in the Third of an Acre Homestead edit, which was perfect. Side note, it's a separate project that we don't need to talk about that because we're going to talk about Whiplash.
No, but I always love when you can do that. When there's
natural music.
Yeah, natural music in the environment, and then you use it, and then you cut to it eventually, which is a good surprise. Because typically, I know a lot of people who do editing, you'll get like a royalty-free track that you can use online, right? But in some scenarios, you can actually capture the music that's actually happening live, like if it's a live performer, and then you can cut to it eventually in the edit, and then it brings everything in to itself, and then it's all I don't know, it's very satisfying, because if you can make a whole edit using the music that's already in the world, then I think it's a lot easier. As opposed to trying to find a track online that matches.
Yeah,
like
it's
the
very
vibe.
Motivated. It's one-to-one. The one thing I wanted to ask, which I hadn't seen anyone talk about this online, I looked this up before we had this conversation because I asked if you'd seen Whiplash.
Yeah.
I just watched it. And he goes and rents a car at one point in the movie. Do you recall this?
Yeah, I haven't seen it recently, but yeah.
So there's a scenario. Andrew, our main character, he's a young drummer. He's 19 years old. It's said in the movie that he's 19. He has to ride a bus to a certain event. Bus breaks down. So he goes and rents a car. Does that like conflict in your brain at all?
Yes. Especially, if he needs the money, is that what you're saying?
No. I'm just the fact that he's 19 and then he goes and rents a car.
To be 25. Yeah, to rent a car.
So I looked this up because at first I was like, how did he rent a car if he's 19 years old? And no one had asked this question. I'm looking on Reddit. I'm looking everywhere on the internet. No one's
drink alcohol back in the day at 19. I'm pretty sure
This is not
until they
that old. This is 2014. This is not 1974. Okay. So
maybe it was a period piece,
which is later in the movie. Later in the movie, he goes to watch. Spoilers, by the way. We're going to talk all sorts of stuff about this movie, Whiplash. He goes and watches his, at this point, ex-professor, ex-instructor, whatever you call him, conductor, and at a bar. And he also gets into this bar at 19. I'm like, okay, what is going on in this movie? And I have not seen any answer to this other than the fact that apparently there are certain states where you can rent cars younger. Oh. But that kind of feels a little bit like a Mandela effect to me, because I've, for our entire career, known that you have to be 25 to rent a car.
Yeah, well, or not even be able to pump your own gas in certain states. I think in all states now you can pump your own gas.
What state were we in where you couldn't pump a gas?
Like Pennsylvania.
Really?
Right? Yeah, and like Oregon, I think was like the last state where there were like holdouts where like a service attendant would pump your gas.
Excuse me, sir, you can't touch that. It's flammable.
Dangerous the chemicals. Union, man. You can't take their jobs.
I don't think I was on that.
They were the first. I don't know, company to go self-checkout.
Mm-hmm. The gas station.
Oh, the gas stations. Gas. Yeah. You pump your own gas. It's like, okay.
You still want to tip us?
Yeah.
Give us a tip for pumping your own gas.
Yeah, I think that's, I don't know. That was a surprise to me. I think, we were in Pennsylvania, pretty sure. And
I haven't been to Pennsylvania since I was born.
Like service attendants that would pump gas.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Must have done a shoot without me. I wasn't there for that one, I don't think.
No, I was with Caleb.
Yeah. They had. So I'm watching this movie going, how is he renting a car at 19? Apparently there are certain states, maybe it's New York or something special, but to my knowledge, because that was a conflict we had many times where we would go on shoots back in the day. Yeah. Again, like almost 10 years ago now, because I'm about to turn 35. So this was like
back in the day.
Over a decade older, more of a problem. But we couldn't rent vehicles where we'd go on these shoots, traveling to a new city, wherever. And granted, during this movie's time, 2014, and also back then, I think like Uber was not what it is now. Now it's like, oh, you need a ride. Yeah, just get an Uber. No problem. But we didn't have that convenience. And we usually needed a rental vehicle because we had gear and equipment that we needed to kind of like store.
It's a lot easier if you had your own vehicle.
So I'm wondering, how did he rent a car at 19? Because it's a big part of the movie.
Maybe no one carded him. Maybe they just assumed. They were like, oh my God, Miles Teller? Of course you can have a vehicle. Like, absolutely.
He looks 19 in the movie. Anyway, so the other thing that this leads to is the biggest scene in the movie, if you recall. He goes to this, he's in a state of chaos where he's late to the event because the bus broke down. Not his fault, but he shows up late. Everyone else is like, where have you been? Yeah. Our main character, Andrew, what have you been doing? And if you don't know this movie or it's been a while since you've seen it, the conductor, the professor, what do you call it when it's an educational program? Is it a professor?
I mean, if it's a class,
it must be,
sure.
Right? He's a professor.
Yeah, why not?
He's the worst character.
Teacher.
Yeah, he's abusive, both psychologically, physically, emotionally, mentally, like a very abusive guy. And Andrew comes in and is late, but he's forgotten his drumsticks. He set them down at the car rental place, so he's got to go back to get the sticks. He grabs the sticks. Now he's even later. So he was already late. Now he's even more late. Making promises he can't keep.
Honestly,
he's rushing back.
Gotta cut that one off.
Classic movie. Car comes from the side. Car accident. He's still committed. Andrew is so dedicated to drumming. He's gonna run in and beaten and bloodied after a car accident. Yeah. He comes in and he tries to play and he can't. He's just physically he's just damaged at this point and completely fails. And gets so frustrated in this moment, he attacks the professor conductor. Fletcher is his name, Terrence Fletcher. He runs, attacks him, gets him to the ground, starts beating on him basically because he's so worked up. And you as the viewer have watched this all transpire. But it got me thinking, it's like, man, what must it be like to be in the position of this professor?
Oh yeah, he's the victim.
After
all the mental abuse.
This is my hot take on this film, right? Because it's clear that he's the kind of
I don't think there's many takes online that say he's the victim. But
no,
sure,
right. But in this moment,
imagine, as he's getting beaten, yes, he is the victim in that moment, correct. For sure. Yeah.
And imagine you're a coach, an instructor of some kind. It doesn't matter what it is: football, tennis, dance, music, whatever. And you're there. You got a reputation to uphold. Okay, it's your band, it's your team, it's your group. And your star quarterback is late. And you're like, where the hell is this guy? What's he doing? I gave him this opportunity. I've been pushing him a little bit in class. He says that he can deliver, and he's not even here. I told him the time. Where is he? And then he runs in late. And he's convinced, he's all cocky, saying, "Oh, this is my part. I'm gonna play. And it's like, dude, you're not here on time. Like,
especially looking disheveled. Like,
just
like, what do you want? Drugs? Get out of here.
Where have you been?" Yeah. Imagine we go on a shoot and we hire a camera operator, the best in the business. You know, he says he's gonna
like the jib operator that shows up. I'm here for the one shot.
And it's like, dude, you were supposed to be here hours ago. Yeah. Where have you been? Oh no, I got it. No problem. And it's like, but it's gonna take me a little bit to set up, and it's all, not working. And you're like, brings the wrong camera. Doesn't bring batteries.
Call the cops, man.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
So in this moment, creepy. I'm watching it, like, I can relate to that, because there are the people, and I think that this is true of any movie, or, people are the hero of their own story. And so when we watch movies, we identify with the main character so much. And then the way they behave is almost like, even if it's a bad action, it's usually justified. And then the other characters around them are almost always portrayed in their extremes as like the antagonist or the bad one. And Whiplash definitely gets that dynamic by the end of it, where you've got your main character, Andrew, and this evil, bad professor who's abused him and he's terrible. And that's all true. But I almost want to see the movie from Terrence Fletcher, the professor's perspective.
Well, they show you at the very end. He reveals why he was the way he was.
In what way?
Well, he was just in the pursuit of excellence. So, like, he didn't necessarily have to say it, because I feel that, like, he kind of got it over time. He was like, oh yeah, he just wanted me to be perfect, which, there's only one way to get that, apparently, which is through psychological torment. But,
so do you think that's true? Do you think the way to be great is to face those obstacles?
No. I think greatness is already in the person. They just have to, like, know that they can. And then I don't think anyone, like, you talk about like managing people, right? It's like, well, you're only as strong as the people you've hired. So it's like, you hired greatness. Like, I don't think you can coach greatness.
So the classic example would be like Tiger Woods, right? His dad was
what do you mean?
Well, I don't know, just from stories I've heard, that Tiger Woods' dad pushed him to be Tiger Woods. And maybe,
I'm sure a lot of it is like more so genetics. Like, you have to be capable of those things before you can be trained, right? And then, of course, it has to be like, I don't know, it's like, if you're very competitive, it's like, sure, you're competitive, and then I think like a father can like narrow the competitiveness into a certain field. So like, maybe Tiger Woods' dad was like, well, golf, that's like, I know that you're going to be competitive because I am. This is golf here,
and I'm going to force you to be the best.
Which, I mean, that can turn, right? Like, I know personally, like, I have some friends that their parents pushed them maybe a little too hard in one direction, and they were like, maybe I don't want to do that. So then it was like turn off, because they were so controlling. But
yeah, they couldn't handle the heat, so they left the fire.
So they were like, absolutely not. So yeah,
never
Tiger
became
Woods
great.
Stayed in there and was like, you know what? Maybe, I don't know. He liked it a little too much, maybe.
Well, and that's what Fletcher says in the movie. He says that he uses Charlie Parker as the example. But anyone, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, pick your favorite, the greatest, the GOAT, pick your GOAT. That person would only be that person. It doesn't matter how much you throw against them, how much adversity they face, they're still going to overcome, because that's what makes them great. And so it doesn't matter how far you push them or what you do. Yeah. This is how he justifies his own terrible behavior of, slapping and throwing chairs and shouting obscenities and all this bad stuff. He justifies it because he's like, that is what makes great people great, and that's how they get to where they are. If we didn't do that, we would it would be a tragedy. For sure, is what he says.
Like, people talk about the GOATs of basketball, football, whatever it is, and it's interesting when people try to compare like a current great athlete to a past great athlete, because like, it's not apples to apples by any means, because a lot of current players took like their GOAT, like, they looked up to them, and that's why they are who they are, right? Like, they perform the way they do because they looked at the past and they were able to build on that. So a lot of it is, it's like, okay, yeah, the GOAT, Michael Jordan, for instance, it's like, could he compete with LeBron James today? Probably not physically, because he was like LeBron James knows so much more about, you know, the game based on the history and was able to put that into his game today, right? And of course, like the evolution of like technology and health science and everything. So he's peak performing at like 18, 19 years in the league, whereas, you know, Michael Jordan didn't have access to all that technology and everything. So it's very interesting when you talk about like, oh, well, could Michael Jordan compete today? He probably could, because he would know that that's the competition. And he's the kind of person that would rise to the competition. So it's like, that was the competition of his day. So of course he's going to be the best. Mm-hmm. And then today, yeah, if you drop Michael Jordan in today, he'll figure out a way to be at the top, but he already did back then. So it's very interesting when you're like, it's like, who's going to, like, is LeBron James or, you know, Michael Jordan the GOAT? It's like, well, you can't really compare them because no one, like, you don't know. But I would assume that it's just like the person's, you know, mentality, and great people are great people.
And in the movie, they talk about these kind of characters, these people, like we're talking now, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, or you have famous people like Albert Einstein, or Susan B. Anthony, or Abraham Lincoln, or whoever, right? Mm-hmm. Martin Luther King Jr. Like, you've got these characters in history, the greatest, the GOATs, mm-hmm. and there's so many of them, and there's so many different industries, and even in basketball with Michael Jordan and LeBron, like there's room for all of them, I would say, and it's very hard to pick like the actual greatest, because there's, of course, different times, different settings, different environments, all that kind of stuff. So there's room for all these people, and the movie talks about wanting this like legacy. Like, that's Andrew's goal in Whiplash, mm-hmm. is to be remembered, to be talked about, to be one of the greats. And it just made me think, like, do you have to? I feel like in a certain way you do. Like, there's a level that the movie pushes with the professor, Terrence Fletcher. Mm-hmm. It pushes him so hard where it is abusive. Yeah. But equally, he has a line where he says the worst two words in the English language, or the deadliest words or something, are good job. Mm-hmm. And because if you say to someone good job, it's like, oh, that's enough, that's sufficient. I did a good job, and mm-hmm. I don't feel that urge of like, well, you could have been better, you could have been better. But then on the flip side, you belittle someone, you criticize someone enough, and they just mm-hmm. quit. Like you said, some of your friends just left the thing they were into, whether it was piano or dance or whatever, because it's like, I can't take this criticism anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to leave. So what is that right balance?
I think it's a balance of being interested in something enough where, like that Tiger Woods example, it's maybe he just got lucky. Maybe the dad got lucky that he happened to be the most interested in golf. Like that's the sport, you know. But it's very interesting, because if you try to push someone into something that they just don't want to do, then how could they ever become great in something that they're not even interested in?
Maybe it's about teaching like the work ethic that's more important. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's just follow these principles and you will be great. And it's working harder than everyone else. It's practicing more than everyone else.
But how, like, that's the part where I think that's either in someone or it's not. But you have to put them in the right environment where if they're interested in the thing, they'll go out of their way to do extra.
To fall in love with it and push themselves.
If they're actually interested in it. Because why else would you do extra if you weren't interested? It's like, unless there was like a financial reward at the end of it, maybe that would make sense. But even then, it's like, why put in so much work if, you know, the reward is, you know, marginal? It's like, I need to be rewarded greatly if I'm going to be putting in, you know, 24 hours.
So what drives you to work as hard as you do in photography and video?
I'm just interested in it, like all the aspects of it. Because a lot of people, like, if they think of, you know, a photographer, they're like, oh, so you shoot weddings? You know, they think of like the one thing that they know. It's like, oh, photographers, event photographers, you must shoot weddings. It's like, no, actually, it's like there's all sorts of photography, right? There's different genres. So I'm just interested in like all the aspects of how to take, you know, astrophotography, landscape photography, macro photography, all the different kinds of photography, and just being able to use the camera to capture different things, right? From extreme close-ups to, you know, the widest landscapes you've ever seen. Like, that's what I'm interested in. So by learning how to do all those things, you can, I don't know, you open yourself up to new opportunities to make money. So like, you know, there's the financial compensation of being able to do so many different things. So instead of just competing in the wedding pool, now I can compete with, architecture photography. I can compete with like landscape photography. I can do all this other stuff, and then combine that with video. Then it's like, oh, okay, well, you do video. What do you do? Like, what do you shoot weddings, or whatever? And then it's like, no, I do all these other things as well. So being able to be, I don't know, it's like, the trade of how to take photos, and then you apply it to all these different industries. But
right, but
it's just my interest.
Yeah, but I want to challenge you on that, because you mentioned your interest, and there's plenty of people who are interested in photography, let's say.
I would
and
say
they want to they try the experiment, but there's nothing in them, like I see in you, where they want, if you're going to take a picture of whatever, I know that you personally, you are going to try your hardest to make that the best portrait, the best product photo, the greatest landscape photo. What is it in you that drives you to want to not just like know how to do it and like take a picture, but you want it to be the best?
I mean, a lot of it has to do with just like my own, because initially you might think it would be like the criticism. Perhaps it's like, well, my name's on it. If someone's going to ask who took that photo, I want them to know like I took it. Or if it's a bad photo, I don't want them to know I took it, right? But a lot of it, I think, is just my desire to make it look how I think it should look. So if you think of like product photography, it's like, in my mind, I think of like high quality product photography. So I'll look up examples of what that looks like, and then I'll try to like not only like replicate, but like also throw in my own style onto something where I'm like, yeah, if I'm going to do a product photo, I want it to be lit well. I don't want it to just be like a photo of the product. I want it to be a product photo. It's like, make it look good.
There's a lot of people though that would take product shots and be like, yep, I took a picture of that product. Check it off, mission accomplished. And you look at it and the white balance is wrong. It's like the lighting's terrible. It's out of focus a little bit maybe, but they've got the product shot. They did the job.
I was having a conversation with one of our friends. They have an upcoming gig where they're going to do like menu photos for a restaurant. And the restaurant's not paying too much money. It's like $300. So when you think about it, you got to really understand what their expectations are. So it's really good to like ask. It's like, well, what do you have in mind, right? And then you can kind of gauge like how much resources actually need to be put into whatever the final product that they might want, right? So if it looks really dialed in, if it looks like a really nice photo where there's clearly like an artist making the food look good, like a food stylist, right? It's like, that's an added expense that's probably a lot more than what they're like giving you, right? So it's like $300 is not going to cover an artist to style the food, or like an assistant to help you with anything as far as like setting up or anything. So it's very interesting when it's like you can get like a low budget job, but then you can overperform, over deliver, all this stuff, but there's no need to. It's just, I want it to look good. I know how it should look, but then you're also met with the other expectation, or not expectation, the limitations of, let's say, I don't know, is their chef great? It's like, because you're also limited on that end too. It's like, I can only make this look so good. You have to give me something that looks good to take a photo of, right? Or the styling comes down to plating, comes down to the table itself. So like, how much are you going to put into it to make it successful, to make a successful shoot in your mind, I guess. So like, I was talking to my friend and they were saying that it was a $300 job. It's like, in my mind, it's like $300 isn't enough to do as much as I would want to do in order to make it look the way it should, in my mind, which would, require a food stylist and all these things. But it's like, you could take the job for $300 and deliver what $300 is worth, which I'm sure you've seen restaurants where it's just like a photo, like an iPhone photo of the food. Because realistically, it's like, yeah, what do you need the menu to look like? Does it need to be glamorous, or does it need to just represent what it is, like the text? It's like, is it a taco? What kind of taco? Is it a chicken taco? Yeah, it looks like a chicken taco to me, sure. But does it need to be an amazing chicken taco photo, It's like you have to meet the expectations, but also in your own mind, at least for me, it's like you also have to like put in the amount of work that you feel comfortable, right? It's like, but that's also if it's a paying gig, because a lot of times I'll go out of my way to learn, tutorials online, and I'm just sitting at home, like on, my own clock, my own time, learning about how to do something, but that's just because I'm interested.
Because you said something that I've heard you say before, that like your name's on it, and that resonated with me a long time ago. Because there are jobs where you look at it, and I think a lot of people do this mental equation. Okay, well, they're only paying me so much, so I'm not going to try my hardest. I'm not going to do my best. But you said a long time ago, it's like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it well. And I know that, like, if you did a job for $300, it doesn't matter that there's not a food stylist there. It doesn't matter what the chef cooks. Because I know you, and you're going to be the food stylist. You're going to be the chef. You're going to style it up in a way that even though you're a photographer in this scenario, you're also going to play all those other roles, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to do your actual best work. And it's interesting to me that there's people that I think you do need to face a little bit of criticism and push past it to become that person.
Yes, but you really have to care, because otherwise, like, what's the point? Like, there's no point in you performing like extra if you don't care about it, right?
Right. Well, do you want to be the best?
If you think of it as just like, well, this is just my job, I'm going to show up and do the job, that's perfectly fine, right? You can just do the job, but it also it's more than that too, though, right? It's like, do people even want to work with you? Like, there's that aspect of it. So it's like, no matter how good you are, like, are you even personable? Like, there's that side of things too. So talking about Whiplash, it's like, sure, this guy might be amazing, but he snaps. Like, do you want that guy around? Like, that dude is nuts. Like, I don't want, like,
yeah.
Like, he might be the best drummer ever, but he might just attack you. You know,
yeah,
like,
it's crazy.
No, like, I don't want you around.
Full of ego.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to be the greatest
at
what you do?
I want to be great. I don't know if greatest is a thing that you should think about. And this is something that I've thought about when people do talk about the GOAT, right? This is something I thought about in college, which I did hear. There was a speaker that came to one of our producing classes, and he was from Lionsgate, and they were talking about how it's like, you just got to go out there and like create your own stuff. And this was back when like DSLRs were first, on the market. So it was actually fairly accessible, to create something that looked good and everything. And he was also the one talking about how like internships. It's like, if you're going to go get an internship, it's like, go for something that you actually like are interested in. And then of course, like, you'll naturally like just want to be there. So even if it's like a non-paid internship, at least it's in the field you want, you might get hired, whatever. So it's very interesting if people go into an industry just because they're like, oh, I can get paid for this, right? And then that's just like the job side. But then there's like the artistic side where you're like, well, I want to get into this because like I want to create or whatever. And then you do want to create the best, because why would you, like, especially if you're into it because you're interested in it, it's like, why wouldn't you want to make the best art or the best whatever? I don't know. It's, again, it goes back to like, are you going to just do the job? That's cool. You can do the job and go home. Or if you're into it, then you can have like a much more fulfilling experience, like with your life, It's like, how often do we talk about how, like, with photography and video, we've been able to travel the world? Not because our interest, was to travel the world, but it's just something that we've been able to do because like we're, experienced enough to land jobs that can take us around the world.
Yeah, it's a side effect. It's kind of the consequence of the hard work. But
yeah,
it just strikes me that there's the majority of people, the vast majority of people, don't want to be the best, don't want to be the greatest. Don't think about it.
I don't think people can see quality a lot of times. I think people understand the like occupation. And again, like back in film school, there were the kids who made films, but they didn't necessarily know how to like critique themselves. Like, they would hear critique and it probably made them upset and like they were, they had their vision, but they didn't necessarily understand like the fundamentals or basics of just, the technical side of creating, because it is art, but it's also very technical, because there's only like, talking about frame rates and motion blur and everything. It's, for as much as somebody can say like, oh, that's just like an artist's, interpretation of how they wanted it to look. It's like, well, yeah, but there's also banding or whatever, there's like actual errors in their work where if they were proficient, they would be great. But
I relate a lot to the Andrew character, and I think a lot of people do. It's probably why the movie Whiplash is so popular. It's very relatable. It's a small, simple story that you can latch onto and see yourself in a few of the characters, probably. But I definitely relate to Andrew because in my college experience, I did try my hardest to be the best.
In college?
Oh yeah, like I feel like if I'm going to do something, I'm trying to remember when it was that I switched, but I definitely my capstone project, right? There's assignments that I've done in school, high school, middle school, college, wherever, where it's just you just do it because you're like, whatever. I need the teachers assign me a paper. I have to do this. I'm gonna turn it in. But for my capstone, my film, my college thesis film, I tried my hardest to have beautiful lighting, good acting, a good story. Because I'm like, if I'm gonna do this, like I'm gonna do it well. And then to be told that like this isn't good enough. We're not going to show it in the capstone screening where the 30 other students got to show their film and mine was like excluded for some reason. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't like, I've seen their work and it's garbage. Like, being the egotistical young, college student, but truly like there on a lot of levels, I would still say that to this day. Cause there's a subjective element to art. And it's very painful when someone says, yeah, yours isn't good. Yours sucks. It's so bad we can't even show it alongside these other ones. And you go, but I've seen their stuff. That's awful, right? And to face that, to go through that, and to be like, fine, I'll show you, I'll prove you wrong. And I feel like that's been my whole career is proving other people wrong. Then they'll say, yeah, you're not, no, that's not quite what we're looking for. Oh no, that's not good enough. I'm like, what world are you going to find someone who could do this better than me, right? And then pushing myself. But I almost wonder if that's like it's a self-fulfilling or almost like that person, that character is doomed. And maybe I'm talking about my own life here. Like I'm doomed to keep meeting these authority figures, these other people who keep saying like, no, that's not good. And being just like, feel like I'm, in some bizarro crazy world. Where I'm like, no, but like, I see what you're looking at, and what you're looking at is Andrew in the movie Whiplash. He has dinner with his like family, and they're like, well, isn't music kind of subjective? And he's like, no, it's not. He's like very blunt. And there's technical things in filmmaking that I'm like, you
did that wrong.
You did it wrong. You did it, and I did it right. How are you saying what I did is bad? And I don't know what the solution for that is other than just doing it yourself. Like that's what I want with Paragraphic. I personally want it to be the greatest series of short documentaries, the most impressive thing you've seen on YouTube. And is it always that? Probably not. There's probably a lot of people who do it better. And then every time I see them, I'm like, man, okay, we got to step it up. We got to push harder. Got to be better.
And that's like you really have to take into consideration like all the factors, which like you can't really. Like watching our content, you don't know how long we had to make these videos.
And that doesn't matter.
It does in the sense of like...
To a viewer, it doesn't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So like if you're just coming at it at random and you watch the videos, you will get a sense of like their quality videos. But then if you do put it up against like something on Netflix or whatever, it's like, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is a large budget and time. It's like that's usually the difference, right? We can create something exceptional in a very short amount of time. And I think that in itself is very like hard to do. Like a lot of people can't do that and won't do it for that matter. But we choose to do it because it's like fun for us, right? And then also it's just like what we want to create for ourselves, right? It's like, well, wouldn't it be awesome if we just made these cool videos all the time? Yeah. All right, let's go do it. Cool. So there's that aspect of it. But then, like I said, if you're just coming at it at random, and a lot of people do, on the internet, just find these videos, you'll every now and then get one of those comments like, these videos are great. Like, how are more people not seeing this? But it is interesting how the times have changed where, especially nowadays, people like are so like saturated with just iPhone created content where it's just video for video's sake. And a lot of it has no point right to it. It's just a video of a cat or whatever it is. And it's just overwhelming people's phones. So in order for us to get our quality video out there, I feel like it's like it's becoming even harder for people to sift through all like the BS videos to find something of quality where they're actually interested in watching for more than 15 seconds.
Yeah. The movie Whiplash paints a picture of greatness as not being lucrative, as being kind of like empty or hollow, in that like you pursue greatness and you might burn yourself out in life. And I think that there is a balance, but it's almost interesting thinking about it now as we're talking through this, that 2014, when this movie came out, seems to be about the end of that trend, where like up until that point, it was admirable, it was noble to strive for greatness, to be the GOAT, to be Michael Jordan, to be LeBron. I almost think that in the last 10 years, it's shifted, where people don't want to be the greatest. They want to be the most successful, meaning they have the most likes, they have the most followers, they make the most money.
Yeah.
Almost every video on YouTube that's recommended as far as like hustle culture is around making money and being successful.
Yeah.
But very rarely, if ever, have I ever seen one that's like, here's how to be the greatest, fill in the blank, whatever it is. And those things are shelved or more put off to the side for like the niche audiences where, yeah, if you want to be the greatest drummer, there's videos and you can find them. But the pinnacle of society and what we look to in culture is, well, how much money do you have?
Yeah,
how much money do you have? Yeah. Oh wow, you're successful.
Because that's how you're the greatest.
Right.
If you're the best artist who lives on the streets,
you're nobody.
You're nobody.
You're worthless.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know how if it is maybe a genetic thing, maybe it's instilled from you from birth, or maybe it's an experience you have with your family growing up or a mentor you have along the way. But there's something in me and the way that we do Paragraphic that I've never cared about the financial success and making money. Yes, that's nice for stability, but for me, it's been about executing the craft to my greatest potential and proving to everyone else and proving to the world that this is possible. I am capable, and look, other people like it.
Yeah.
And proving that point is far more fulfilling than like, hey, I did something that made me millions of dollars, but I'm actually kind of embarrassed by it, or it's like low effort, selfie videos or something. Yeah,
what you're describing seems to be the best way to really earn a living too. As far as like, if you're talking about like gaining an audience of some kind, like a true audience is very valuable, right? And especially if it's if you're creating something and it's like they're the direct, beneficiaries of the product you're producing, right? Because then it's a really nice ecosystem to build for yourself. Because no matter what you create, it's like a lot of artists, right? A lot of music artists, everything. It's the only time that a great artist seems to fail or fall off is when they start making something for everybody. It's like, no. Like, do what you like. And then if you like it, then people will come and follow what you're making. It's when they try to like just make it so bland that everyone can accept it. Then it's like, well, that's not very interesting anymore. It's so I do think it's interesting where, especially some of the videos we have don't exactly like align, because there's a majority of, some kind of videos. I don't want to say it, sustainability or whatever, it's like you might come across like the mushroom video, for instance, and be like, oh, this channel is about mushrooms or whatever, and then you might see other videos and you think it's, I don't know, more like an off-grid, profile. But then other videos come across, right? And then you're like, oh, wait, no, they just make cool videos about everything. And some people get it, some people don't. But I think the people who do understand that, like, oh, okay, I know what this is, then it's like, that's like an audience member for life kind of thing. And like, that's, I feel like, who we're making videos for. Because ultimately, it's like we're just making videos for people who enjoy the, I don't know, quality videos. Like, that's what I like, and that's what I want to see. I feel like that's why we do it.
Make it for yourself first. And I just heard this about the original Star Wars movie, George Lucas, A New Hope, back in 74, 76, something around there. That movie was made because they were, the team, George Lucas and a couple of the producers, were like out going to the movies, and they're like, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a sci-fi movie?
Oh yeah.
They were like, none of this stuff is like that good. I don't want none of these movies I want to watch.
I've heard this story before.
Wouldn't it be cool if there was something like that? And then they're like, we should make that. And I think that pursuit, seeing the gap, seeing what you want, creating it for yourself first and then putting it out there for other people is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah.
But paired with that is this kind of striving for greatness. And I don't think you have to go through abuse or, massive criticism to get there. But I just wish that more people were tuned into that goal, because I feel like so many people are, their goal is just to like get by, is just to like we working for the weekend.
Yeah, just to do the job.
I just do this job so I can go have fun.
I want to do, I'm doing the job so I can do what I really want to do, which is, fill in the blank. It's like, well, why don't you just do that for your career?
Yeah.
It's like you love golfing.
And then be great at it.
Go work in that industry.
Be great at it.
But
the other thing about Whiplash that's really cool, and it's like the movie encapsulates this concept because it's a great movie. One of the greatest, I think, as far as just making a film that's lit well, it's shot well, the acting, the writing, like every detail of it is exceptional. And it almost would be a disservice to the story of this drummer who wants to be the greatest if that was told in a movie that wasn't
shot on a potato.
that wasn't that good. And that's why I say it's kind of like a filmmaker's film, but it's kind of reflective of what you were saying of, I don't know, pick something and do it well. Where when I watch Whiplash, I think, man, so many people nowadays have an idea of something. They have this vision.
Yeah.
They want to make it the greatest. It's the best. It's the biggest. It's a space and explosions. And we've got an army, 50 superheroes are all fighting. It's going to be the coolest, greatest thing ever. And then when you watch it, you're like, well, this is kind of lame. And to me, it's more about the details, because anyone can have an idea for the vision. And it's the thought I had when I was on the way over was, people are obsessed with the vision of success, of greatness, whatever. They have their idea. But then no one wants to do the work of the details of lighting the shot, getting the scene dialed in, the editing, the time it takes. I look at Whiplash and I'm like, man, this is a work of art, and all the love that went into this from every single person that was working on it. And nowadays, you don't even have to worry about those details. And this is why I think AI is so addicting and attractive to people, because all you have to have is the vision. You just type in, I want a picture of this, and you don't have to take it, you don't have to paint it, you don't have to do anything. You hit go and AI does it for you. And the hard part, the details, taken care of for you. All you have to have is the vision.
Well, the hard part is the vision, though.
I think the hard part is the details.
Well, everyone needs to have their vision in order for everything to be successful. Like, take Whiplash, right? It's like you have the cinematographer and like the gaffer and all the people who like work on like how it looks. That's all they have control over. And as long as they're great at that, sweet. But then the director has to worry about the performances. And if the performances are crap, then the cinematographer's gonna be like, shit, I can't have that in my reel. Like, geez, man, like, that was a terrible acting. What are you doing out there?
But my lighting was great.
This looks spectacular. I'm just gonna have no audio,
Yes, and the size and scope, I don't know how many people were involved on Whiplash, but I imagine it's a smaller crew. So there's a higher likelihood that all those people could be great at what they do. But yeah, I think anyone can have a vision for something, but executing the details to that level of getting the lighting right, getting everything so perfect is the hardest part, but it's the part that matters the most. And people they want to just sit back and go, have AI do it. Have someone else, paint the picture.
Yeah. But for someone to get an accurate photo, they have to be able to describe it, right? So like that's the part I feel like is like if no one's ever touched AI before, I think the number one thing that probably happens to everybody is, well, what do I type first? And then you have this thing that'll make anything for you, and you're like, trees in space or whatever. And you're like, you just make up something random and just like, well, you could be way more descriptive than that, but it's like you've never done it before. It's like, well, what can you make? I don't know. Like, what flavors do you have? It's interesting.
I think you can be successful when you focus on the details first, and the details build the vision rather than having this grand idea. Because Whiplash is so simple that like if you just get those basics right, you create this masterpiece that's still talked about 10 years later. It's one of those movies that sticks in your mind far beyond, watching it, or even like other films you watch. You're like, yeah, that was good, but I'm never going to think about it again. Whiplash is one of those that I constantly think about, like maybe like the Roman Empire for me. Like I don't think about the Roman Empire all that often, but I think about Whiplash often because it's so good and there's so much to get out of it. But yeah, I don't know. I wish I could. I wish I knew what that was that motivated people to be great. Because the other thing I was going to say, good job, those two words, right? That's what you have to say, though, to volunteers, to people who are helping you, who are there out of their own kindness, out of their own goodwill, right? When I first started working in the industry, I worked with a bunch of volunteers, and we were all just kind of like there for free, dedicating our time.
So you're telling people good job when they didn't do a good job, is that what you're saying?
Basically, yeah, you have to. Otherwise, they won't show up.
You just say, thank you, not good job. Thanks. Thanks for that.
There's an amount of encouragement that people need, even if they're terrible, to show up again. They need to be, maybe thank you would be enough. Yeah. But
like I'm glad you showed up.
Yeah, you can't.
Thank you for being here.
If you criticize,
you don't have to criticize them on their terrible job.
Because if you criticize people, they filter themselves out. Yeah. They don't show up anymore. Yeah. And then you're left with maybe the one person who's like, "I'm here to be the greatest." Yeah. And maybe that was me or whatever. But you're surrounded by no one else, and there's only so much you can do by yourself.
I feel like, man, going back to like, I feel like it has to be in the person, and I don't know if it's just like an obvious thing you can spot, but I feel like you can spot those people who are actually interested at any job. Like you can pick out the person who's like, oh yeah, that person has potential. Versus most people probably, oh, it's 5 o'clock. Where'd they go? It's like they're already out the door, It's like those people you can tell as well. So I don't know if it's, maybe you're born with it, It's like Maybelline. It's like, I think you're just born with it. And then hopefully a manager who's good at their job can foster that and then allow you to grow. And hopefully isn't a roadblock like you were talking about.
But it seems to me more often than not that they are.
Probably because a lot of those roadblocks, especially in like most careers, they're just afraid for their own job, probably. It's like, well, you can't be better than me. Can't have that.
I don't know what it is. I wish there
was probably just job security for them.
There's definitely, I see a lot of overcorrection on both ends of the spectrum. There's the people that are so kind and nurturing and, oh, amazing. And yes, everyone's a winner. And here's your trophy. Here's your ribbon. You're like, they were terrible. Yeah. Like, don't say that they're good when they're not. But on the flip side, when you're like, you suck, you're terrible, that's no good. And you're like, dude, we just won. We got first. Yeah, but you messed this up. We should have been better. We scored 5 goals, but we should have had 10. Like there's a sweet spot in the middle of those two opposite ends of the spectrum that I feel like no one operates in.
Yeah. There's some difficult positions to be in. Like I know we've done work for clients, like where the initial draft was better than the final draft because their revisions are uneducated, where it's like
their goals are not our goals, right?
Right. It's our goal is for everything to look perfect, and then they might supply you with assets that are extremely subpar.
Right. But their goal is to get more visual variety or something.
And it's in their best interest to have that asset in the video, and you're sitting there like, no, if I put this in here, it's going to make it bad. Everything's going to be bad. Like this one frame, bad, everything, So it is frustrating, especially when, you want it to be great. And then maybe the company you're working with doesn't care or doesn't see it, as you do. So it can be frustrating, which is the best part of Paragraphic because who's above us as far as like who has final say. It's like we're not submitting it to somebody for final approval. It's like, well, do we think it's good? Yeah. Or do we not? How can we change it? How can we fix it? How can we get better? Which is, I think, the most fun part. We show up on a shoot and then you just remember all the previous videos, all the previous edits. You're like, I know I need one of these shots. I know I need this. I know I need to ask this question.
It strikes me that the most successful people that I know of personally, so not people I see on the internet or just random strangers who from the outside look successful, but that I know are successful. People I think of, John or Sally or Angela or Mike, are these people that are self-driven to be the greatest And yet they're often very critical of themselves. Oh, that could have been better. The 1% we talk about a lot, right? You get 1% better, 1%. Oh, that could be, I could do it again. It could be a little bit better, a little bit better. No one is pushing them. They're pushing themselves. And they are the most successful people I know of. And they're also the people that have the innate desire to be the greatest at what they do. And they're always pushing themselves. And so if I were to say that there was something to emulate or to instill in yourself, it would be that desire. Find the thing that you want to be the greatest at and push as hard as you can on it. Because I think you'll end up being successful just based on the people I've seen and I've met.
And anything. It's like if you obviously, push to be the greatest, there's very little competition at the top, for
well
most
said.
things.
Well said.
Right?
I don't know. Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you get to the tippy top, there's Google, and then they'll just buy you out or whatever. Like they'll destroy you before you become competition. But no, it's like it's like a double-edged sword though. So no matter how great you can be, let's say you're the best wedding photographer. Sure, you might be the best and everyone wants to work with you, but then you have to compete with like pricing, for instance. Then you have to compete in like another category where it's like your quality can be top tier. Sure, but then you're competing with just, do people like you? Are you charging too much or whatever? Because at the end of the day, it's really about budgets, right? In our industry, at least, especially if you're going to do client work. That's what it all boils down to. It's like, well, what's the number, And then the quality, of course, is in there, but you just have to negotiate.
Yeah. Do you want to be McDonald's and be successful, or do you want to be the struggling restaurant but know that you serve the greatest food?
Yeah. And we talk about that way too often, I feel, because that's something that
a lot of people want to be McDonald's.
Yeah.
They want to be famous and rich.
I had back-to-back shoots this last weekend where I charged the same amount of money to do two drastically different things. On one shoot, I was one person, a part of a much larger team, right? And my day rate was like $750 just to be a person, a part of the crew, right? And this is great. Like, I'm very talented, which is why they brought me on the off chance I had to do photo, video, whatever, PA, just be an extra hand, whatever. Great, cool. And on another job, it was like a one-man band operation, charged the same amount of money, had to travel to the gig, do my own lighting, do my own, video, break down, set up everything myself. Same amount of money, but in my mind, it's like that's the gig I wanted to do in order to, do what I want and have full creative freedom. Versus the other job, it's like, they're going to pay you, but the responsibilities are far less. But I don't know, I feel like you have to perform if, on the off chance you're like called to do it kind of thing. So it's just very weird how like somebody can, like in your mind, you're like, I'll take this job for less money and overperform, but I'm still going to enjoy it just as much as this other job, which, pays the same, but my responsibilities are far less.
And then the situations where we go and film Paragraphic and we make no money.
For free.
Yeah. No money off of like the shoot itself. We make whatever YouTube deems the videos worthy. And it's, for me, the most fulfilling thing I do is that work.
It's probably because, the end result is going to be your final say, right? It's like, this is mine. You don't have a client that's going to say, it's like, well, this should be different. This should be this. This should be it. It's like, should it though? Should it? Maybe it should.
Or I didn't even want to do it to begin with, right? Because a lot of client work is like, okay, yeah, I can do that, but I wouldn't go out of my way in my free time to do it, but I'll do it for you, sure.
Yeah, it's very interesting being in our industry, especially if you're, again, doing client work. Client work is the weirdest part about it because, like, you can talk about people who are very successful, right? It's like you talk about John. John makes the best bread, but John doesn't take the best photos or do the best videos. He can do photos and videos, but he relies on like other people who are much more, competent in like making great videos. And it's like, well, you can't do it all. You can, but it's like, do you want to be the best at making bread? He's probably going to be, in the kitchen testing stuff out, which he is. And if you want to be the best at video, it's like you're probably going to be, in the lab testing out different rigs, and so it's like those two people have to come together in order for it, to all be successful. It's just very rare that a company and like a creative professional really do come together and like see like what it could be, what the potential could be. Because a lot of people are looking for just the one asset. It's like, I need a company overview video. Please get me this. And then it's like, well, you don't even know how to use it, right? It's like, what are you doing? But when they come together, then like you can really see, you know, results.
Yeah. Maybe in Whiplash, Terrence Fletcher, the professor, maybe his goal should have been to be the greatest teacher, which I don't think it was.
No.
I think his goal was to create a great, and I don't think he knew what the path was, what the secret was, to be the greatest teacher or instructor.
Do you think he wanted to be the greatest teacher?
No, he did not. That should have been his goal. His goal instead was the maybe selfish or the misguided goal of like a lot of people have. We've talked about this before. Like their goal is, I want to be successful.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but like the way to get there is not to like aim for success, because you'll make mistakes and you'll fail along the way.
Sure, yeah.
His goal in the movie is he wants to create a goat. Should have just gone to a farm, I think. But
yeah.
He wants to create the greatest drummer.
Terrible form.
Instead of his job, which is to be a teacher, he should have had his focus on, I want to be the greatest instructor. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? What are the attributes of a great instructor? What would that person look like? How would they sound? How would they behave?
Well, I feel like, again, it's like it all has to do with like, if you know a person is good or great or has potential, like that's like, get them on your team. But like the best leaders don't really have to say much, right? Because if you have the right team, the team is going to perform, and you just have to like guide them. Like if you're a great, you know, like manager, for instance, like, yeah, this is where we're going. I hired you guys for a reason. Do your job, you know, and then we'll get there. But that's, again, it goes to the very beginning. I don't think you can just have someone random and then make them the best.
True. I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm going to take my gummies for the day because I haven't taken my gummies yet. And we can wrap it up here. We'll have gummies and then we'll play a little end roll and we'll be done. So we don't have to talk while we chew. So thank you, David. Whiplash. It's a good film.
Definitely a must watch.
I think a lot of people have seen it, but if you haven't, check it out. It's really good.
Often called the mushroom of the gods, lion's mane has a long history of medicinal use. This popular nootropic has been shown to enhance focus and increase cognition, helping you feel more productive and accomplished. Research studies have also shown that lion's mane is neuroprotective, giving you peace of mind as you power through your day. Try lion's mane and experience the mental clarity and productivity boost you've been missing.